Hello, America. Me, quoting Alfalfa, but to help prepare my voice. Because I don't have the microphone, I don't have time. There's a plan for humanity, names A through Z. We can blame a hyperarchetypal criminal enterprise. We can make a hyperarchetypal criminal enterprise act. We could simultaneously, for example, without having to blame it on the case of an attack or the case that together as a species volume, we could recognize that the ground below our feet, evidence shows that the suburbs, ah, excuse me, on Tuesday, the suburbs were tactically denatured and designed before our founders were born in Russia and in America, and vice versa. That sequence is needed to be valued, vice versa, simultaneously and hyper simultaneously. For the only identity that shows us the answer slash S regarding any question here to there, as the only identity of value slash value progression that is not here or there, while it is here or there. And then, anyway. And then further, as its system or not, the hypernative one, as each thing, well, not the rest of its body that shows. We have the same color eyes, different color eyes at the same time. Our exception is exception nature because it is itself distinct, non-distinct, in its simultaneous relationship slash hyper simultaneous. This is what we observe when we appreciate. This is what we're appreciating with the hyper invisible, as the hyper invisible, but still discernible. As why there are 6 names for the verb. There might be 7. But what they are in demonstration of those 6 names are the 1/3/5 ways, the 3 and 5 being grouped, and the one way being simultaneous. Also a further hyper simultaneous aspect, quality of every single identity exists. Its identity of relationship to itself and the value of that, inseparable from, while as each thing. Vaccine. It is coming to, from, while it is as, with and for each thing. And with a special difference, how it communicates, the identity of hypersimultaneous, scientifically, being more valued than just that, as one of the things we begin to discern, with discernment scientifically, of how each species volume is a species body, invisible but still discernible, as an individual, connected, distinction, a distinct body, each species of individuals, and group differences. The only reason this is left out, with all the sciences know, with all the questions know, is because the preaching method that came from semi-ancient times, it assigned other things, others, ourselves, to be blamed for what it caused and keeps. For example, the assignment of the communications of black and white, where and how it uses this to communicate, answer our questions. What is slavery about? It's about a human fact, human nature breaching method that knew it had to hide itself. So it had to force sustained roles with human fact, human nature, slavery, And while it's being sustained, and further, while people are simultaneous to further identities as ground, we'll get to it. Everything is a trinity and has every part of itself as a trinity between each part. Cell nucleus, cell body, cell wall. With our value as nature / nature as value. They come also with the value as itself. Where does value here anyway? What actually was before. What actually came first in sequence. Not a big bang. Its identity of relationship to itself, and the value of that are only increasing. Nature shows us, to begin with, it's more probable, and it's more practical, as we could observe. To that, and people agree on things, but formal doctors, formal, people who use words like research, those locations had, before they were born, tactically juxtaposed, tactically distinct natures of organized crime, of roles, for example, with way worse than Jim Crow laws, and blaming it on other things, others themselves, using that to measure and maintain needs and natures in defense of descriptions of the law and or of names that can't defend that and have the poor discerned. The fact-achieving nature tortures, extortion, and slavery method against America's founders, sickly distinctly from how against our presidents. George Washington agreed to begin as our president and to make with the founding plan, with the plan of our founders, and with our nature of reception to it as the Constitution unabridged, that we have not been afforded. With the nature of the Constitution unabridged also hyper additionally, care and love, and being of and as a nature, not inclusion, /s. So one of the things that we could do to I want to show you this, but in other words, I'll donate the whole thing if Judge Napolitano will help, if he follows mandated law. He's not following mandated law because he can't fathom. Each campus I went to since I was the youngest kid, there are fake things they're putting in databases at everyone's campuses, but it's from motivations, influence from off campuses. And forgiveness is because there's a breaching method using the database relativity of our names and of the names of our names further as ground locations, voicing /s. This being as natures, but now no longer through its system. See Native Americans. They never had. They would shock it off. Walked to courts that themselves came through schools that forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded them not to discern, sickly distinctly against themselves. But there are revelations and there are means with this hyperscope black pupils, having had this left out, having had the simultaneous described tactical ulterior than it is under the guise of science. The suburbs were designed for torture, extortion, slavery method, fact-achieving nature-oriented one. A predicate acts with facts delivery system method, black pupils, I'm not a lawyer. Who denies that is going to have inherent to, active to, and progressive to There are fact, human nature, quality aspects in nature, things like criminal insidiousness and delusions, not just natural ones, but tactical ones. Natural only has criminal insidiousness nature. And as having been filtered through campuses at each age with their obligations to communicate by the communications of our founders having been replaced. The nature of debate regarding debate and evidence is treatments. There are mass federal evidence is crime methods, whole methods of them. Federal rules of evidence is crime methods, whole methods of them. The more and more this had collusion at all locations, what no one wanted. It was making exceptions where people are fact-checking nature, not even realizing. That's right where they're hurting most, where there's exceptions, because then they're going to say other. This employed blamed on other things, others, and or blamed on themselves. The real cause of negative value nature progressions, acts and natures, and or else the sense. I keep seeing YouTube short about a woman from Korea who looks like, and she said she was hungry her whole life, from South Korea or North Korea. And North Korea and South Korea still have suits and ties, and America still does. And America still has our history told by the people who had slavery entrenched North and South before our founders were born. And through our schools, they're still framing our founders for that. Under the guise, as their roles with a whole bunch of different countries at the campuses together. Now, these campuses are remnants from when the science, from before the sciences became criminally re-engineered and retold their history, because they cannot afford how the republic is to be and to function. I want to show, nature wants to show us things that we all want to have, put forward, but it's not going to come through these filters. First of all, you can't speak about American history properly at any age of it with the answers properly. If you can't speak about how and why, the breaching method employed industries and value systems apart from their complete system, which is hyper-native pure. And so there are 3 volumes. There are 2 groupings with Native Americans. Native Americans were already fighting with each other syntactically and then physically, because sustained from semi-ancient times against the human names A through Z, demonstrably, is a singular method that forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded people to blame other things, others, or selves for what really caused negative value nature progressions, acts, and nature. Acts like predicate acts. Natures like wrongdoers, like wrongdoing itself. Nature's like criminal insidiousness that way. Nature's that way. And or as acts. And or as fact, human nature, quality aspects in nature. Also as hyper-criminal insidiousness. This breaching method also in semi-ancient times before already had affected consolidated roles, blaming other things other than themselves as the victims, A through Z, not fathoming what was the real cause of it. In other words, so we are in the semi-ancient fact, human nature trap. And it wasn't his self-value roles too, because it uses and needs motivations, narratives. With the motivations, regardless of what they are, per narrative. In other words, there's a hyper extraterritorial, not just extraterritorial involved. And we have this means to admit better than perfectly exactly how countries A through Z became archetypal criminal enterprises associated with and as natures of positive and negative treatment styles and natures of logic that can't defend themselves and afford at any location the same way overt criminal enterprises and private ones and people associated with relying upon uses of criminal insidious factor, nature, quality aspects, and natures of people A through Z. For example, with political reasoning, the value of voting reasoning, and descriptions of motivations of themselves and others, and descriptions of and like for why and how people would have emotions, because the emotions are about per nature to discern if we are using or leaving out the smallest finite detail or leaving out what is actually simultaneously valuable. Black pupils. We have means to discern that only fake integrity was backed into speaking for integrity. We have experience. We didn't have black pupils, white survived. And what we are actually capable of discerning, answer our questions, of using to answer our questions. We didn't have that using them. We didn't use the hyper evidential. Evidence is reception, diffusion, has been maintained criminally for an influence, tactically delusions raw, reliant upon theater takes of the appearances of justice, theater as criminal insidiousness / hypercriminal insidiousness, natures of positive and negative treatments to keep from being discerned. The breaching method, which is an identity of relativity to each part of everything, because of its criminal engineering of that which was revealed by nature itself as the republic for which we stand, and as its roles with tribes and with exceptions and appreciating everything as exception nature and as a special difference per its roles with hyper special difference and / hyper a special difference too, and the means for that to answer our questions, to guide us, tell us what to do. We have to use its method of communication as being everything at once while not, but anyway, any prey. It is showing us its distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous / hyper simultaneous identity relationship to itself, and the value of that. Where and how it is these, for example, three ways as two participle nature, or as a verb by itself. That name. Then no, but this it also comes with where and how hyper additionally. It can be used as a main verb, as a predicate. And it could also be used for the verbal and the gerund. These names are to appreciate the two participle nature. And the gerund and the present participle, they say, is always formed by putting ing, the ing ending, inherent neutrality / neutralize. God. I'll donate this to the World Plan, a part of our website. And if the world lets America go first one way, but we won't move, just like until the whole other world will go first another way. And when we're ready to go first simultaneously, we can move this way. And appreciating how our value nature system and how definitions of stability have stayed. In other words, roles of the torture, extortion, slavery method, factory nature slavery method, before and then while being one manifest, where and how the suburbs were designed before our founders were born. The suburban / urban style, too, a part of the plan, where it caused negative value nature progressions, acts of natures, and kept that self-value, blamed on other things other than themselves, and changed the nature of how, where, and why, and how nature is communicating to us. For example, to be reliant upon the other names of the species body, while being told simultaneously to value independence, the species body of individual bodies, and group difference / S its way / its way / the care to keep Y its use of it. It makes more value as the only every identity of volume is distinct, including something you can make up. Anything you make up has its volume, hypervolume science as 1/3/5 identities of possession over each part, smallest finite part of what you can make up, every group part of it, and together, black pupils. See, but we have the people who used had natures of debate regarding things like crime and punishment, or crime and criminal justice, corrections. Note the word corrections. So the state of Connecticut corrections offices, for example, they have roles of military. They have roles with computers. Hyper additionally used by a breaching method since before computers. And this breaching method is a singular use of all locations / S. This is a use of the nature of the debate, plural, and or its senses through ourselves. Tactical ulterior from how this hyper programming will have us. So Judge Napolitano will help. Already the agencies and various police departments with the same house / S. They've been attaching little kids to fake conversations through time. They've been federal rules of evidence as crime methods at corners of streets and corners of buildings. They've been confessions, for example, as roles with groups and locations names, simultaneously pretending to be against that, simultaneously defending natures of syntax and logic in nature itself that can't defend that and afford to be, let alone to protract short words with convictions proper. And regarding, for example, things so serious, such as the tortures of, the extortion of, and the factory nature slavery of our founders, let alone of the people that hurt it worst. That breaching method. A human factory nature breaching method is a scientific value, recorded being, hyper-evidentially recorded being and having been tactically replaced to maintain theater as criminal insidiousness / hyper-criminal insidiousness, defenses of, as posturings of integrity of law, of precedents and statutes readings legitimate, where and how this breaching method propagated effectively self-cultivated in some ancient times and right through modern times. For example, way worse than just, but effective uses of the phrase Jim Crow laws and or of the word homework and or the word value to be used to screen from off campuses increasingly live progressions from other locations and or names uses roles that had already been were already all sides of criminal all investigations investigators black pupils, certain type of victim slash hyper victim on the other side of the kids and adults shooting each other to keep measured and maintained effectively left out the hyper foreign and or the foreign blanked. We have to look where collusions are at A through Z, individual grouped in together, black pupil. That is, let's see suits and ties and counters. See how the suburbs were designed before our founders were born, and they look just like the ones in Russia, in Ukraine. See how they say, oh, well, know our people, everyone leaves out. Our people are black pupils. Whites of eyes. Discern. Our founders had not free speech. The nature of debate contains quality of fact-driven nature, aspects of fact-driven nature. Nature of debate using words like, and styles of uses of words like evidence and data that cannot defend themselves and afford to be, let alone to protract. People using what is hyper-evidentially actually recorded is capable of being used to show how this breaching method deployed effectively, and increasingly it does. Keeps this the outcome /S. Names on all sides of criminal and of civil cases, and the court's names, and the difference of that in the intelligence locations names, and the news names already planting having planted collusion, sequence shifts, roles with the breaching method that screens itself, also by keeping other countries in their groupings pretended to be the only things juxtaposed with our own state. It's recorded how a certain type of victim / hyper victim is measured, maintained, walked into positions that are going to blame other things other than themselves. In other words, integrity never spoke in New York City, never spoke at the suburbs or the founding locations, 13 locations north and south that had to be counter extorted by our founders. You guys are pretending, you have people pretending that our presidents are our founders and getting away with it because our country's A through Z, we have criminally foreign influenced teachings of our campuses right through it. They have a names game. The people involved with all these different countries, the people from the ones that are like long-term Americans, but not our founders, except for maybe some of them are the founders who are the portion who had to be counter extorted. Not James Madison's plan. Even if, this interpreted James Madison. This interpreted what Constitution Unabridged means before anyone had sophistication. Black pupils. They can't even answer what Jim Crow laws are about. They force individual leaders to value locations, areas, and states. Knave. Fake integrity, of toughness behind this machine that was only capable of being because of the Native Americans being 1/3 of our founders and then grouped with the portion who had to counter the other third of our founders. And all three are being forced to become that three ways, that nature of, and check too. If we are that nature of independence and unity by the species volume or not. And if we are not, it's good because that shows us how to reveal evolution's fruits, gifts, means out of nowhere. See, this system makes everything positive, value, nature, progressions, acts, and nature all three sense. And that's good because then we can get even more sophisticated. Positive value, nature, progression means out of nowhere. We have to admit, too, hyper additionally, we are ground voicings. In our countries A through Z, the grounds from semi-ancient times, they were tactically denatured per this method. To force, trick, hurt, and persuade defenses of selves to become defenses of phrases like criminally foreign influenced. As it. And pretending others. So screening the breaching method. Suits and ties. Black pupils. Yeah. So the agencies with people named Phil Cololo and people named Thomas Dillon, Kevin Dillon, Anna Dillon, they are recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Involved also with former director of the FBI, Robert Lusk, and his co-defendants, and a whole bunch of people at Hartford Hospital with their mental health care, and ones with badges, and UConn associated with them, Quinnipiac University, Maine University, I believe it is, involved with tactically juxtaposed distinct natures of organized crime. There were all these different countries in the news involved. And they lie about the motivations of others when we use our own names and when we use other people's names, because they've been attaching everyone and everyone around them to fake words. Because the law is written that we can only speak for ourselves. So the police forms have been attaching us to fake transcripts and planting evidences, including fake letters, including there are proofs that there are military, foreign, and domestic, and FBI and other agencies associated with people with the name Stryker, with FBI experts, also with places conjunctive to Elm Streets and Weathersfield and Rocky Hill, and names conjunctive and adjacent to them. So, in other words, and these are people interstates and foreign in Washington, D.C., further hyper additionally. In other ways that too, it's discernible how their first is worse. And as roles with these are names, roles with the World Trade Center attack, who also have roles from as those names from off campuses haven't been stayed then to as names hyper additional motivations and apparent and interests. Really, they're hiding the off campuses names involved. A whole bunch of people with the name Leahy at Hartford Hospital, involved with people also at New Britain Hospital, and other hospitals, and interstates, campuses, systems, with drugs and medicines crimes with kids, putting fake conversations in databases, criminally foreign influence, remote uses of investigators. Weathersfield police also made confessions about their roles with child defender principal and with the Leahy family that attached me to fake, and they've attached me since I was a kid, fake conversations ties to them and people tied to them and their families. Trying to make fake exceptions too with their roles with criminally foreign influence, uses of corners of streets, with people also involved with Trinity College and CCSU with names next to them, who are connected, the names next to them too, who are involved with the wire crimes with the names near me, planting evidence on all. The way they do it too is confessions through statements. And then they want to ask questions about it later, because these are people involved with all sides in criminal and civil cases already and increasingly. and or the names interbranch at the same time, and the news planting evidences, sequence shifts, fake ties, fake natures of ties to people. Everyone in themselves and everyone around them attached to fake words, fake ties to others. Hartford Hospital just against individuals, and whole families have been doing this just against individuals. They're stealing they're all stealing thousands of dollars a day, with a whole bunch of families tied to people with the name Cololo and McGee and Sullivan. There are people with the name Lance Cuddy and his family, and one's on off the state judicial branch officers with people with the name Dave and Anthony, people with the name Aiello, also on off Trinity College and the spots next to it involved with foreign and domestic intelligence community. Trinity College also confessed these people roles with untimely deaths. With my neighbors with that too, my past neighbors. And the Dylan guy involved recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, coaching the neighbors on all sides of my house to roles with them, hiding life progressions also with judges and their family members, as roles with the wire crimes with the same house slash S involved. And it's not personal. They're trying to make it personal. All exception nature appear to be in demonstration of other are in demonstration of the same thing. For example, Ray Reynolds went to the first school I ever went to in Weathersfield, and it closed that next year. And the houses next to it have roles with him planting identity theft, fraud, slanders, including their with timed roles, collusions with teachers as people when I was in grammar school and middle school that I never saw around the grammar school and middle school campus. And the intelligence community was measuring where I was going to go to walk, and now you're going to walk there, and they're putting people in my classes, also from other like private schools, and they're planting evidences. They're using investigations and investigators remotely. This is why and how the political parties are pretending things are only politics that are not, because this is with the press, all natures of precedents and statutes, including formal. So they have readings of the legality with marijuana, for example, used to measure and maintain by the breaching method that has individually grouped in together countries with all kinds of drugs and medicines and creating physical and faking physical and mental diagnosis of people and what caused them to do that. And while there's still tactically delusions wrought, black pupils. So there are only about 350 streets in Hartford, Connecticut. And just individually, these families, they have been stealing more than, thousands of dollars, as the ones involved with wire crimes at Weathersfield Police, as the ones with Rocky Hill Police, Newington Police families, also with Cololo and a Phil Cololo, with a Bob Chase. Whiting Forensics is increasingly involved with predicate acts with names on off campuses, planting evidences, timed collusions with the news, judges and prosecutors and their families with the houses and businesses next to Trinity College and CCSU. Unmarked police forms and training of military, whatever they're doing with overt criminal enterprises that has their roles shared too. The names next to those locations with their roles with the names with the buildings next to the state capitol. And next to as roles with names next to the news locations, planting evidences under the guise of legitimate covering up lie progressions, has something to do with their coaching of people with the news media at Central Connecticut State University, roles with communication racketeering worse than war crimes, also with some KKK black themed and social special services themed people who are also involved with Russians, with fire departments, and with the ownerships, of the buildings next to Central Connecticut State University, in the businesses, distinctly in the homes. And they're involved with the collusion /S with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and his co-defendants in Hartford courts. They affected in the military, foreign and domestic, they affected confessions and demonstrations and confirmations of roles of people from Wethersfield, like a Mazzucato bakery and a modern pastry, are being coached by Wethersfield police through time, police chiefs with the same house, people tied to them, to plant evidences, identity thefts and frauds, slanders, fake ties, fake natures of ties to people, uses of the exceptions, as their roles increasingly with shopping centers and malls and all along roads and routes, with people with judges and prosecutors switching names, forging names, forbidding writing because they're putting fake things in databases, because they have roles with criminally foreign influence uses of investigators since founding, of perception, of difference uses. Nature and language uses difference in ways greater than, more finite than, and with active relativity to how math uses difference that it can't afford to have discerned, has the same as it does with the law. Identity, where it is its identity of relationship to itself and the value of that, it is greater than, is more finite than, is active relativity to, not as the rest of it is complete identity, but as it anyway. The identity of the hypersimultaneous. The observation of shows it is value as more things, boxings. It is what makes each program have the ability to be any kind of value, even if it's still, especially, these are still criminal and seditious natures of positives. All exception nature employed to keep what is unnatural, to keep what is only natural as criminal insidiousness and or as hypercriminal insidiousness increasingly pretended only natural. The breaching method is and has been present, and where it is discernible is where it is also being and having been blamed on other things, others, and or on self. And where there are apparent motivations for that, they come also with the hyper apparent and with means to discern use of that / use of that singular, keeping the all plural ones used effectively to keep blamed on other things other than ourselves. The real cause of negative value nature progressions acts in nature, like the environment's poisoning. The environment, how it was denatured. We have like a fake pond that was made before I was even born. And it was beautiful. And it was like the same thing with the house, where they put the grave site of J.P. Morgan, who's one of the people who helped us fight in the World War. But names A through Z are being hurt, tricked, forced, and persuaded to use names in defenses of law, of the names of the sciences, while defending that to be able to never overcome that which is fluent through our nations, that which is the subject of James Madison, that founders are not allowed quality of fact, human nature that presidents are not allowed quality of fact, human nature, and or they don't allow it. For how locations, areas, and states stay criminally foreign influence, predicate acts with facts, rules, needs, and nature, styles of logic, before they ever came to terms with words formally like crimes or justice or America or names A through Z. So this is also the intelligence community is in the process of confessing, demonstrating, recording, confirming. Interstates, they have people with names like Scalora involved with Florida, with Central Connecticut State University, and with Miami and Orlando, Florida. with a whole bunch of different countries involved with psychiatry, who leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context and since, they effectively pulled off roles with the Patriot Act and with the locations like the boot near there's a boot black place. It says BB where Johnny Duke, the dinosaur of boxing, he used to shine shoes with um, Willie Pep, who was a world champion of boxing in Hartford, Connecticut. That's where it was first Immigration and Naturalization Services, INS, and the buildings next to it there, and the exits. So these are people involved with former Director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and other agencies. There are CIA, and their roles with Russians, Koreans, a bunch of people involved with Koreans, and males and females with the intelligence community along Route 3, involved with remote uses of all sides in criminal and civil cases, and the interbranch names involved with the names along there, planting evidences, roles with their schools. New Britain Superior Court has men and women involved with a traffic stop of me there. And I had to go to court. At the court where it is the town line of Rocky Hill and Weathersfield. Increasingly, there is a Mayor Gold and a Debbie Gold and a Lee Gold, and be involved with other people's confessions and demonstrations, and roles of whiting forensics involved with child offenders, including with sexual and religious at the same time as being legal ones and medical ones. These are foreign and domestic people involved with uses of difference, their own, where they speak about the law and about their own names and other value with. So they've been putting fake transcripts in database and pretending it through the mail. Hartford Hospital, they haven't responded to the first of 3 times they forced me there for a mental evaluation. I had people involved there with what I was forcing people to call the police without telling them why until they would. Involved with, I caught them doing that. Then they were trying to blame it that I was yelling, and they had fake conversations with me to hide what they were doing. In other words, increasingly, as the people involved with wire crimes and Weatherfield police switching and forging names on police reports too, with the name McGee. Increasingly, people with Rocky Hill schools have roles with predicate acts at Central Connecticut State University and intercities with Weathersfield schools. Had roles with Weathersfield schools too. Elections, all sides, all the Republican, Democrat, the difference of that. If what people say regarding that too, they want to have nature debate by things, go back and forth with sides of cases. They're fishing because they're caught. Whole bunch of people involved with former director of the FBI along Weathersfield Avenue and Franklin Avenue, involved next to the schools in Hartford, and involved Albany Avenue, involved with courts, involved with the name Cololo, O'Brien, Scalora, and DeMauro, involved with these doctors and police forms and judges and prosecutors personally and professionally sick together, and with the prisons. Sandy Hook has roles. These are also names on off the state capitol and spots next to it, planting evidences, having people film it so they can pretend people are lying when they say no others. And they only in context with them trying to plant evidences, which is recorded a whole bunch of ways. That's why it's important to get them on paper in one name and sequence. They've been planting evidences on off all sides of the kids' houses that I caught them further. See, why you guys are sustaining this? These are people involved with overt criminal enterprises, actually, not just legitimately with their roles with acting coaches, acting professors. Central Connecticut State University has a whole bunch of roles with people with the name Kerr and DeMauro and Heather Hansen, and people I don't even know on the name of, but they know mine on Church Street in Old Weathersfield. They also lied to my girlfriend when I was a freshman, and with the FBI director and and his co-defendants and their family members were involved with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, with grammar school kids and middle school kids and their professors, and they're attaching everyone through time to fake words with each other. I never had communications with them. I never had nature communication. Whole bunch of people tied to a Christopher Walters have roles with the people planting evidences with the medical community, and ones with badges, and ones that are involved with Canadian border a bunch of ways, criminally foreign influence, and the Mexican border, and the coast, California. These are people involved with the emergency rooms of California, the military with California, intermilitary, Navy, Coast Guard. Coast Guard has roles with a Joshua Julian, intelligence community on his street. People with the name Violet involved with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, with military, foreign and domestic, even Kuwaiti general, and with names criminally foreign influence planting evidences on all the state corrections offices, all the state judicial branch offices, as names involved with the spots next to the state capitol. They're people with the name Sharkies and tied to the Sharkies. I don't know Sharkies. Recorded, confessed, demonstrate, confirmed. They were trying to make fake pictures, fake exception. When I was in like ninth grade, I think it was. And I had no conversation there with Ray Colo. One time, the only time on Zion Street next to Trinity College, you never saw him on the campus of Trinity College. Trinity College said that there are people with the name, different generations of people with the name Oliveri, with the name Olson, and Eric Olson and Matt Olson, but then they have kids that are involved there too, with the former director of the FBI, intermilitary. There's FBI. There are Mark Violet, people from Hartford Hospital, involved planting evidences, whole methods of it. There's a Darth Vader, a guy who uses the word Darth Vader. He's involved further with the untimely deaths and with the principal child abuser. And there are more school resource officers involved with it. And they have wire crimes with the Weathersfield police, roles with falsified police reports with them, KKK theme, black theme, Confederate flag theme, as names who have been planting rules on all evidence on all sides of my house, with the names involved with the wire crimes, and planting evidences with writing forensics, with names also since before they moved in the area involved with the same house involved with that. They have the witness protection program, also various ways involved with corners of streets, associated with Joshua Stryker, involved with identity theft, lying about me and others. Never had a classroom in my life. They're putting sequence shifts. Never had a conversation with Word or conversation with him at Trinity College. He's involved with sequence shifts there, and various natures of federal crimes, intercities with the people involved with the untimely deaths, criminally foreign influence use of elderly homes, as people are involved with uses of veterans homes too, and spots next to them. These are also spots next to the state corrections offices, increasingly involved with people on off Trinity College and CCSU, UConn, and Quinnipiac, involved with identity theft, fraud, slander, predicate acts with fax methods, criminally foreign influence uses of all ages and natures, of discernment, of perception, of science's names, black pupils. Yeah. So we can put this down here with this program, alphabet. A spells alpha. So this program will, if someone types in the name Anthony, the program will respond. Alpha neutrality / neutralize. There are exceptions. There are different ways to read. We'll teach this, but telling highs, omega neutrality, Y. Black people's beer. So this guy has roles with used criminally foreign influence, spectrum in nature, quality aspects, and there's a difference between how the people are mean to the police and the police are mean to the people, for example, is used for way worse. And or all the exceptions are. This breaching method employed fake identities of the law. So there's people on and off Morgan Circle named Kerr who recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed by Wethersfield Police and by Officer Jerry Miller. They've been planting evidences on all sides of my house, including roles with football and their narratives and confessions and overt criminal enterprises and private ones in a red pickup truck and a guy who was playing football who had kids involved with the principal child defenders campus, who's also one of the ones a whole bunch of ways, conjunctions to the state judicial branch offices and conjunctions to that are also involved, like Morgan Circle, like Valley Crest. There are houses on Valley Crest. And there's also a teacher on Morgan Circle and people that Eric Jensen and others recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed these are people involved with state police and DMV, DOT families, involved with foreign and domestic families with medical corruption, putting fake things in databases, people that never had any classes with each other, and neighbors that never saw each other, and make fake exceptions because they're all victims too. Then they lie, pretend people don't care about everyone because they're lying about care on a mass scale at formal locations. They have to pretend other, and they were shown that why they were and how they're used remotely. So they've been putting me in fake transcripts and fake ties and natures of ties to people and faked and changed communications with everyone around me since I was a kid. With the same people interstates involved with the intercities too. They did this on every side of little kids' houses, of their adults, because they already had the hide lie progressions by using everything that came before them. The difference of them doing it, overt criminal, but the overt criminal enterprises and private ones originally and still, they were employed and as groupings tactically ulterior from how they are countered as groupings, because there are collusions keeping from being discerned the predicate acts with facts delivery system method. Black pupils. So all we have to do is have Judge Napolitano follow mandated law, because there are intelligence community families that have been using their kids. If they want forgiveness, like Christine, she deserves forgiveness. The people who put her in a cooking class with me, and the Jonathan Mayano, I never knew him before that. They repeated his name to me. One time, there was one exception at a cafeteria. They brought up a criminal enterprise in a movie too? No. They have roles with each of the sciences sickly distinctly, individually grouped and together. A bunch of people with the intelligence community at Central Connecticut State University have roles with names like Mayano, involved on off the World Trade Center and on off all sides of criminal and civil cases, including with names in the Ninth Circuit Court right before the World Trade Center attack, proven after the World Trade Center attack. Post-dated documents had been post-dated from inside the Ninth Circuit Court to make them look as if they'd been handed in late. That was proven after the World Trade Center attack. It was in the court right next to the World Trade Center. Both names on both sides of that case were attached, forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded to predicate acts with facts roles with New Britain and Hartford courts, family members, and intimate ties, foreign and domestic military, on off West Hartford locations and parks and religious locations, with Eric Burgess, Mark Violet, Joseph Dennis, and John Dennis. Also, their roles all along Route 175 with intelligence community, foreign and domestic, criminally foreign influence. Involved also how with the religious spots and sequence shifts, like about how and why people know each other. They've been planting evidences with their neighbors involved, like ones with the name Gold, mayors involved. I don't know their names, and people tied to them, like an English house helper who works for a family of a deceased mayor, and her house is right next to the Board of Education building. These are people further involved with the World Trade Center attack, who also they forced, tricked, hurt, persuade Saudis to roll with this. Also, Saudis I know, not even realizing because they weren't in the court with me, and the other names that they used, like there is intelligence families from East Hartford, police departments, and police forms, roles with fire departments and FBI and other agencies. People with the names Cololo, Scalora, and Demoro have roles with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and teachers, their own teachers putting fake things in databases against other people, but also people from off campuses are attaching everyone to fake and changed words. And conversations and locations next to each other on campus that never were. A dean judge tricked her, persuaded against the law to confess or to admit or to make up that he with courts, and I found out the FBI director with his and his co-defendants, they were planting evidences, and people they have criminally foreign influence roles with their depositions, with the courts involved with that, and they asked to get involved. Usually, um, pro se legal suits against the FBI would be someone from inside of the jail, but this is against the union, who also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, has been planting evidences with the courts and with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin. Otherwise, they're going to want, if they want forgiveness, they have to follow mandated law and get on paper, one name and sequence. And they have to get a response for the Robert Rodriguez has roles with untimely deaths, with my past neighbors, with people involved with the news neighbor, as the news neighbor's real estate agent. And they have Anthony Minacchio and his sister involved with the intelligence community, foreign and domestic. I don't even know them. They're nice people. They're trying to make problems between us. That's what the Navy, that's what the O'Brien family does too. They go back and forth. They went back and forth one time when I was a kid, make fakes, but then they put conversations about people on phones with what's tied with their roles with federal evidences crimes, including black KKK theme and flag theme. These aren't people, who could speak for the law, whether they're Republican, Democrat. They have to pretend that that means what it doesn't. That's how they're shown to get away with things, because they're used remotely. Then they're shown to blame each other for that, leaving out the breaching method that's there the whole time recorded. Black pupils. So in other words, Weathersfield schools have roles with Whiting forensics and Sandy Hook campuses names, and Hartford campuses names, who've been planting evidences with Rocky Hill campuses names, including the police forms with the schools and military and their roles with intelligence and the kids. None of them legitimate black pupils. So we need to do this peacefully, because they have roles with gun crimes, poisons, and the evidence is planting. And they have roles with their differences into branch. And they have sick threats where and how they have their sick differences used. Into branch intelligence, the difference of that too, is also consciously used with the same house/S increasingly involved with the Weathersfield police with wire crimes, fake ties to kids, fake natures of ties to them, and roles with the news with them planting evidences and direct to pretend it's personal, like they believe they have integrity, that they know they don't, because this is what forgiveness is about. We could use correlation that formal voicings can't afford to have discerned black people. We have to understand how our founders, as James Madison, in his name, how they got George Washington to agree to hide with their actual motivation. and how they were the plan to get up, to get said, told us to get the Constitution unabridged, and to get understood how and why we have rights that are too innumerable to list black pupils, and the nature of debate being haven't been used. Like, for example, anything one says can and will be used against. They're pretending that means fake things. Precedents and statutes are raised that way. They make their difference. Oh, at least you have a court case. They're putting fake. They're collusions. New York City. Those people, those mental health experts, they're involved with Connecticut. The rules on and off the campuses with placements, all sides in criminal and civil cases. So long, they have the names next to each spot involved, including the campuses. And they're pretending not by planting in sequence shifts and evidences. That's why it's important to get writing forensics on paper with the campus, the rest of the people regarding the principal crack confessions. They have more digital crimes with the FBI too and other police departments with the fake emails and lying about their conversations with me over the phone and lying about what I say clear and what I don't say clear too. That's why it's clear or not clear. Some of my descriptions as left. And it's nothing, in other words, they're supposed to follow mandated law when we tell them how we're attached to fake conversations with the news media. They're searching for ways to hide this because they have judges and prosecutors coaching them to hide because they already got caught as rules with locations. And switching names there at formal locations. They have rules with elections, locations, leverage, and pretending motivations tied to Paul Manafort. Even if the whole stuff was made up, they're leaking stuff tied to that. Whole bunch of people tied to Gail King have roles in writing forensics too, and Central Connecticut State University with WTNH, WFSB, Fox Connecticut News, planting evidences with names next to them, increasingly with houses next to me connected. They plant evidences. These are intelligence community, a whole bunch of people with the name O'Brien, tied to it, Timothy O'Brien, Andrew O'Brien, Mark Violet, and Justin Kavinskas. Never saw them in the same place, same time. Has something to do with their roles, planting evidences with judges and prosecutors, with a Rick C.M. Faglione and Brian Silver and Mike and people with the name Brendan Leahy, involved with wire crimes with the Cololo family. And identity theft frauds, planting evidences all along Route 3 and its conjunctions like Hangdog Lane and Two Route Highway has something in its conjunctions. Increasingly, people with the name Casper, also Hartford Hospital, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with the people planting evidences on all sides of my house, and with Hartford Hospital, and next in spots next to the state capitol, identity theft, fraud, slanders, as people increasingly rolls with a former Mayor Gold, and spots next to them, names and adjacents to them, involved with federal evidences, crimes, child abuses, and various natures of organized crime at the same time. Whole bunch of different countries involved with them. So let's get them on paper, one name in sequence. In other words, 2 times a Joe Aiello was used to film like fake ties to me with my neighbors, tied fake group with them. Was his roles with people with medical corruption and wire crimes with the digital offenders of kids on Facebook, also with their own kids involved, their own pictures, because these are people involved with remote uses of investigations, investigators, a whole bunch of different contracts and people with contracting and intercities like associated with with this guy named Gold. Has something to do with the roles with the ski locations and the developments with the social locations. because of their roles with the FBI director and their methods slash as, and the courts, judges, and prosecutors planting their family members, like with the Weathersfield, with the boxing gyms, intercities, people involved with the Justice Department putting fake things in databases, people who run the prisons, a whole bunch of people who run prisons and their campuses. See, Central Connecticut State University has roles with names next to Trinity College and next to Central Connecticut State University that are recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with people on my street from the intelligence community who have been planting evidences and hurting kids through with them as collusions with them. And he said, she said, for their roles with a whole bunch of different countries, like with psychiatry and with like their roles with Hartford Hospital, fake transcripts, uses of remote investigations, uses of town offices, uses of probation officers intercities, involved with timed roles with murder dumping spots and murders and timed at the time connected shootings, even though they appear unconnected. Intercities, these are people, increasingly people. So, in other words, they have what they call training or whatever. Their tactically delusions raw. Old Weathersfield has an old town cafe, and there's a next to it, and Weathersfield Pizza has Weathersfield Police recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They have roles with a Stephen Stocko and others at Central Connecticut State University, like Mark Violet with a Maria Vizino, attaching me and others to fake location sequence shifts, fake ties and natures of ties to people that we never even had classes with or saw around school. And they try to make a couple exceptions with some of the people tied to the same house involved with the wire crimes and medical offenders of kids, like the name Leahy. They have me attach me to fake conversations about my family and about my family members. All exceptions too. Exception nature do they lie about what's actually recorded. Like with that girl who said something about her mother died, and I don't know if that was you don't know who, when they force you for mental diagnosis, mental evaluation. Two, it is because they painted themselves in corners on Facebook. The leaders of Facebook, some ways completely themselves criminally foreign influenced, as ones involved with upskirt pictures on Twitter, per their motivations and narratives with Facebook, as their roles with people with the name KNERR on Facebook, with rape threats, with the as passion crimes with the Facebook page of New Britain Superior Court, as proofs and confirmations and demonstrations, as roles with what I asked to have reported before the World Trade Center attack that they hit. Because courts and former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and their family members and intimate ties, like an Emily or Amy, who lives across the street from my in a 3-story house across the street from a little kid's school in Hartford with flags on it. And she has judges and prosecutors and police forums out of Central Connecticut State University involved with the former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and a Dean Judd and his family, attaching me and others kids to fake location on the school that are filmed 24/7. Never saw them there. They were planting evidences with foreign and domestic military. These are inter-services people. And these are people that are bringing things before courts to measure them, being used as tools to measure and maintain by the breaching method. This keeps Superior Court judges, for example, flooded, individually grouped and together every day. All exceptions, exception nature will have demonstrations of the same thing as black people. So forgiveness is not to leave out the breaching method and to use how everyone's simultaneously guilty relative to it. For example, you guys have other things, others, ourselves blamed where the breaching method, a human fact, human nature breaching method is what caused slavery. not money, etc. All that, in fact, all that those truths were used for lies and to screen what caused it. We used it worse. That's what nature shows us. Black pupils. There's a predicate acts with facts delivery system method we are going to grip metaphysically, intellectually, and physically, while we are as the gripping of evolution's fruits and gifts and means out of nowhere, as means that show these economic value nature systems. We can afford like that, fixing better than free. The tactically denatured suburbs designed before our founders were born. So, holy God, the people in Hartford and New York City need our help. With just simple being keeping it real, but also that nature that is hyper native. We have, if we move as a species body, volume science /S, and blame the breaching method in the form of calling it a hyper-archetypal criminal enterprise. And we could, I'll donate this to the world, this programming method, but only if I have help here. And mandated laws follow. I want a response. I need a response now. I want a response for my behavior too, because they're lying about people's behavior. So when I'm aggressive or when I'm calm, we need a response for this. Please, that's not aggression against you, Judge Napolitano. It's against the court that have the passion crimes as rules preventing me and others before attack from telling what they have asked us to tell. The courts affected confessions to me, foreign and domestic military, their extended family members, which were also confirmations by a Cololo Mazzucato. What you do with West Hartford, New Britain locations, Rocky Hill locations, the Elm Streets in Rocky Hill, Weathersfield, all along Route 3. Federal evidences crimes, federal rules of evidences crimes, criminally foreign influence uses of names roles, black people, switching names, forging names, allowing people not to get organized relative to this. Same people need to pretend together because they're about organized. You have sick people with psychiatry and mental health as a phrase, and you have had their family members of the branches of government juxtaposed with this, with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and a whole bunch of natures, a whole bunch of different countries on off the campuses in ways they don't realize. A whole bunch of styles. Nature needs a logic, can't defend themselves without self-valuing. Other told, other taught instead of understanding first how George Washington agreed with our founder in the name of James Madison, and in the name of Native Americans individually grouped together, even though they weren't a grounded, agreed upon identity of voicing a contingent of Native Americans. And all of them are the value of the Constitution unabridged of president / chief and of chief / president. Simultaneously, conversely, / hyper conversely. And we have to be led by that because there is also a further part of itself. But we have how and why. It is this the identity of possession over every subject individually grouped together to lead us. How and why it is a hyper invisible with the as why. A verb has more names than one. And how and why they are about the 1 / 3 / 5 identities of sequence nature. So, see, this guy has the Weathersfield PD. He admitted, Judge Napolitano, Weathersfield PD. They've been planting evidences with a Joshua Schumacher all along Route 175. and conjunctions to it, like Walker Hill and the South Steam Highway and its conjunctions, and Weathersfield Police Department where it is now, and spots next to it, and names involved with him like Mike Pandolf, involved with lawyers planting evidences at crime scenes with people, crime scenes known and unknown, and ones you recorded that you could discern, but they've been roles with all sides in criminal and civil cases, intercities, planting evidences. Weathersfield police have digital crimes with a principal upskirt nature involved with this Joshua Schumack and Officer Jerry Miller. And he confessed he confessed to Jerry. There are more than two people with the name Jerry Kerr, and there's a Michael Kerr who's one of the ones involved with a Joe DeMoro and a Ray Colol with wire crimes with the Weathersfield Police through time, and other police departments. It turns out, and campuses are involved with wire crimes with them, falsified police reports. They attached me to fake conversations with people. Police when I was a kid. They have roles with people with the name with my new and past neighbors. With, conversations with people tied to Mayor Gold and Kevin Dillon and Thomas Dillon and Anna Dillon and people with the name Lombardo and Scalora who were planting evidences on off Hartford Hospital and on off my street and on off Trinity College as their roles with untimely deaths and hiding confessions to me made on Facebook, which were also confirmations. And their roles with threats because they had to fake I knew people. So they had people make confessions that it's a federal crime to lie about too, and to pretend that I know them that way. And there are increasingly people doing that. That's how they confess and demonstrate things. So the houses next to Trinity College and CCSU have intelligence community, foreign and domestic. They have rules with Russians, with Ukraine, with Koreans, with the same house/S, like people with the name Cololo involved with Weathersfield Police, with the name Sullivan, and McGee switching and forging names, falsifying police reports. Chris Walters and others recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed federal crimes with evidences and with drugs and medicines with people from Hartford Hospital Intelligence, identity theft, fraud, slanders with them. Also, as their roles with the spots next to Central Connecticut State University, connected to their roles with the names next to Hartford Hospital, planting evidences, and next to post offices, next to UPS, next to Coca-Cola. When we're on off these places, and including increasingly people tied to a Joshua Striker too. Identity theft, fraud, slanders with people who lied about me to their teachers behind my back, and my teachers behind my back. I had conversations with them, and then they're planting fake evidences in databases. Increasingly, there are people with the name Delaferro tied to probate court judges and Scalora and Spada, brought up by the people planting evidences and lying about themselves and me to others through time, and about the motivations timed with the foreign bodies. That's how they do that. They're playing games, and these are people with O'Brien family. They'll name O'Brien, a Ray O'Brien. He said though, I never met. I don't know who that's. I think it's Dennis O'Brien, the father of the Tim O'Brien and Andrew O'Brien, who were involved with Rocky Hill and Newington Police with this name Colola, with wire crimes with them, and with people who say they're KKK Confederate flag themed on Facebook too, and religious spots involved with New Britain Superior Court and Hartford courts, planting evidences in West Hartford locations, New Britain locations, affecting confessions before the World Trade Center. Has something to do with confessions tied to that spot and demonstrations of use of it from people involved with the Connecticut, the Weathersfield Community Center, and all sides of it had names that were planting evidences, lying about themselves and others, people associated with them. as roles with the judges and prosecutors and their family members, as timed collusions with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, fire departments, families, and medical families. People with the name Apted. Paul Apted has a sister also involved with Facebook, with the FBI director, and foreign and people involved with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, not legitimately as police forms or training or whatever they're doing. They're attaching kids to fake drugs uses on a mass scale. They're putting fake outcomes of deaths on a mass scale per the recorded roles with organized crime methods and natures of crime of predicate acts with the names at Whiting Forensics, involved with the same house with wire crimes when I was a kid, involved with federal evidence as crimes when I was a kid, as the people involved with the police forms that grew up pretending to know me. I never had a class with them. In other words, it's important to get this interbranch onto paper and in one name and sequence and fast, and to stop bringing up confessions through others too. Get them on paper. I want a response. Why I didn't get a response? Don't make it worse because you guys are going to bring in more people that way. You want to make me use my neighbor's names. That's why you're playing games. That's why I haven't had a response yet for the rest of the police forms and medical families and courts switching and forging names with child offenders. I want my paper, one name and sequence. I want a response for the confessions of the principal child offender too. I want to know what the heck they said. I pretended I said, and I want the fake emails and all this and the fake letters put on paper. And I want a response why I didn't get the response to the last email I sent to Wethersfield Police. I want them to pick one name and sequence and get on paper. And the rest of America wants it too, because these names and their family members are the ones on off the World Trade Center attack and the court next to it involved as the ones planting evidences on Central Connecticut State University before that, with Connecticut's district court names involved criminally foreign influence with the FBI group itself, predicate acts, methods, roles on and off campuses, at crime scenes increasingly. Multiple unions are involved with this, with their little insidiousness natures of identity use as black pupils. Here. Please get Judge Napolitano to follow mandated law for Wethersfield Police. Have them. They did good. Confessions about the police chief Cintron and about this Leahy guy. Now let's get the rest of that confession out and get it on paper. Let's get this Brendan Leahy and his father on paper and the women in their family on paper too. These are sick people with the kids. I want their kids on paper too because they brought it up. They have them involved with the upskirt pictures and the other natures of pictures of the kids on Facebook. Fear God. Get them off Facebook too. Make sure you get this Leahy family and the Lombardos on paper too. They're also involved with the houses with the wire crimes and untimely deaths and child abuses with overt criminal enterprises and private ones. Little sexual circles lying about maturity because they're lying about what was actually recorded on campuses. Fake things. Put me fake ties, you little fake criminally foreign influence punks. That's why you have black pupils. We have no integrity with what designed the suburbs, what our founders spoke about, what our founders communicated regarding James Madison, George Washington, and the tortures, extortion, slavery method of that fact-cheating nature of slavery. And the nature of debate. Make it on paper because there are more people with credible poisons like bug spray and smoke in ways too with some of the descriptions. They're looking for descriptions because they're needing to hide lipoaggressions because they have various courts, judges, and families involved with the narratives and natures involved with the wire crimes through time. Fake conversations. They're kids that used to communicate with each other apparently when I was growing up. I didn't have no communication with them. With there's quick exceptions, that was all, they're trying to make it look like other. I didn't have conversations with Joe DeMauro. The conversations I had, they hid. I recorded it. Make sure you have Joe DeMauro confess about that. Because the FBI lied to my girlfriend with Heather Hansen. And they have wire crime roles through time has something to do with their roles with corners of streets all along Route 175, and their roles with people on the corners of the street, like Church Street and Old Wethersfield, also with WTNH, Fox Connecticut News, and WFSB planting evidences at other corners of streets, and with people that live at corners planting evidences at other corners with them. Fear God, and stop changing the names of the streets.